First, they tough. Then something happened to them. They turn to God. Then, when everything's cool, they tough again. I don't understand, man. It's real confusing to me. And if I had one more rapper talk about Versace, come on, man. Leave it alone. It's over, y'all. It's no more. It's finished. I started it and I ended it. It's over. Yeah, my album Me Against the World was the second one. He had the first one. I changed everything because Ready to Die came out and it sounded like my album. And the next I saw was in the studio where I got shot. So I knew he knew what happened. So I was like, Biggie, what happened? He kept sending me messages like like I'm gonna come see you. No, what happened? While I'm in jail, strangers is telling me, you don't know. Biggie homeboy shot you. Tupac also had me pissed off, you know what I'm saying? And the rumors that's spreading is on some shit like we set him up. You know what I'm saying? And that's crazy. It's just ridiculous, you know what I'm saying? But then I also understand that if you was to get shot 5 times, mine is just completely spinning, you know what I'm saying? You're real confused about your situation. So it causes you to say things that you really don't mean. Any artist out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star, don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the videos, all on the record, dancing. Come to Death Row. You claim to be a player, but I f***ed your wife. Which of those 4 is it when you talk to him about murdering Tupac? It was really about both of them. Either one. It was Tupac and Biggie. Yeah. What's up, girl? Where y'all going? About to go to the club. Can me and my homegirl go too? Hell yeah. We're going to 662. Fall in. Follow us. So it's Pharrell, you, Puffy, Zip, and a bunch of Southsiders. In what Puffy makes kind of an announcement? Yeah. He said he'd give us anything for them dudes there, you know?
In 1984, a kid from Harlem, New York named Tupac Shakur would move to Baltimore at the age of 13, where he would attend the Paul Laurence High School. When he was in the 10th grade, he would be transferred to the Baltimore School for the Arts, where he studied acting, poetry, and music. Throughout the mid to late 80s, hip-hop music would become one of the top genres in the world, and gangsta rap would also become a mainstream success. In 1988, Tupac moved again, this time to Marin City, California, where he would attend Tamalpais High School performing in theater productions. At first, Tupac's sights were set on becoming an actor, but with the rise of hip-hop, he also had an interest at becoming a rapper himself. Tupac would drop out of high school and decided to begin recording music under the stage name MC New York. Pac would begin attending Leila Steinberg's poetry classes, and she soon would become his manager. In March of 1989, Tupac and Ray Love would form the rap group called Strictly Dope. A lot of the music Pac did with Strictly Dope would go unreleased before the group eventually dissolved in 1990. Some of the tracks they recorded would end up releasing later in 2007 on a project called Beginnings, The Lost Tapes, 1988 to 1991. In 1990, Steinberg would manage to get Pac signed by Atrin Gregory, who managed the rap group Digital Underground. Tupac would become their roadie and backup dancer. It would be on the track Same Song, released in January of 1991, where he would officially debut the stage name Tupac under Interscope Records. In the late 80s, an MC in Brooklyn, New York, named Christopher Wallace, began performing on the streets of Brooklyn, freestyling under the rap name MC C West. While he was MCing, he would sell drugs on the side, getting involved in crime in the city. By the age of 17, he dropped out of high school, and that year, he would be arrested on a weapons charge in Brooklyn, being sentenced to 5 years of probation. In 1990, he was arrested once again for violating his probation and eventually was thrown in jail for selling drugs. Wallace would spend 9 months in jail, eventually making bail, and it would be after his release that he sought out to find a better life instead of getting involved in weapons and drugs. This is when he would really begin chasing his passion for hip hop music, adopting a new stage name, Biggie Smalls, aka the notorious B.I.G. He began recording demo tapes in 1991. Mr. C, who was the DJ for Big Daddy Kane and the Juice Crew, would eventually discover it, so he would begin spreading it around. While Biggie was gaining traction in New York, that same year, on November 12, 1991, Tupac dropped his debut studio album, Tupacalypse Now. The album would reach number 64 on the Billboard 200, and this is when hip hop would be put on notice that Tupac was here, and he didn't shy away from showing his incredible lyricism, conveying political messages about social issues that America was facing, like racism, poverty, police brutality, etc. The next year, in March of 1992, Biggie would be featured in the Source magazine's Unsigned Hype column. This is when A&R of Uptown Records, Sean Puffy Combs, would arrange to have a meeting with Biggie. On July 14, 1992, Biggie would sign to Uptown, appearing on tracks with some of his label mates. It would be in 1992 that Tupac and Biggie would officially meet for the first time. But how exactly did they meet? Some say that they met on the set of Poetic Justice in the summer of 1993, but that doesn't add up, considering that movie dropped in the summer of 1993. The real story of how Biggie and Tupac met was in LA in 92. Biggie would ask a drug dealer to introduce him to Pac, to which Pac would then invite Biggie and his crew to a party at his house, and the two would kick it. Tupac even gifted Biggie a bottle of Hennessy. This would officially be the beginning of their friendship. The two had mutual respect for each other as artists and liked each other's music. Now, at this time, Tupac was already getting himself established with his debut album selling hundreds of thousands of copies, and he already had starred in the movie Juice, which was released in January of 1992 and would become a cult classic. On the other hand, Biggie was not really known outside of New York, as he hadn't even dropped his debut single, let alone his debut album. Biggie and Pac became really close. When Big was in LA, Pac would let him crash on his couch, and when Pac was in New York, he would stop by Biggie's neighborhood. According to Yuckmouth from Loonies, Biggie's style was heavily inspired by Tupac. On February 16, 1993, Tupac dropped his second album, Strictly For My, which would sell 38,000 copies in the first week, reaching number 24 on the Billboard 200. In 93, Tupac and Biggie would perform together at shows, along with Tupac's homie Stretch. Pac and Big would freestyle together on a couple of different occasions. One at MSG at a concert that Big Daddy Kane and DJ Mr. C had when Big and Pac went on stage to deliver a classic freestyle. Another one where Biggie and Pac were having drinks together at a table backstage. The duo of Pac and Biggie was very much unmatched, with Pac's poetry and Biggie's lyricism and flow. In the summer of 93 is when Biggie would burst onto the scene with his debut single. Back in 92, MCA Records and Uptown Records signed a $50 million deal, which saw Uptown producing the soundtrack for the movie Who's the Man. Puffy, being responsible for the soundtrack, would call on to his newly signed artist, Biggie Smalls. Big would record his debut major label single called Party and Bullshit at Soundtrack Studios in New York. The producer of the track, Easy Mo B, said that Big recorded the track in one take. The track would officially be released as a single on June 29, 1993. Tupac would ask Biggie to join his group Thug Life, which was formed in 92. Biggie turned down the offer, instead deciding to stick with his own crew, which would later be known as Junior Mafia. Junior Mafia were all close childhood friends from Brooklyn, with members such as Lil Cease, Lil Kim, Nino Brown, and more. After becoming close friends, performing together, freestyling together, and traveling together, in late 93, Biggie and Tupac hit the studio. This comes at a time where Biggie was working on his debut album for the newly launched Bad Boy Records called Ready to Die, and Tupac was working on a couple of different things, like his own solo work and his album with Thug Life. There's only a couple of tracks where these two collaborated on that we would know of. One is called House of Pain, which was actually supposed to appear on Biggie's debut album, Ready to Die, but would be scrapped from the album. Another track called Running from the Police, which was set to be released on Tupac's next album, which would be shelved in '94 and later became Me Against the World, and also set to appear on Thug Life's debut album, Thug Life Volume 1, being scrapped on both occasions. Sadly, in the year of 1994, this great friendship would come to a screeching halt. Throughout Tupac's career up to this point, he had a lot of issues with his label. Interscope and another label he signed to called Jive thought Tupac's music wasn't really marketable, so every time he went to turn in his album, he had to rework some of the songs. His 1992 album, Thug Style, would never see the light of day because the label told him that the music or sound was not marketable, and no label wanted to work with an unmarketable artist. He also scrapped 50% of his second album, Strictly For My, which was originally titled Troublesome. In '93, he would begin working on his third album, which was originally titled Mr. Middle Finger. The problem was that no label was really willing to give Pac a chance. The only one who was willing would be Eazy-E, who was the founder of Ruthless Records. Pac and Eazy were friends, so as Pac was seeking to get a record label behind him, he thought there wouldn't be anyone better but Eazy, because Eazy is a gangsta. He's not going to care about marketability, like most of the corporate labels will. In '93, this would never come to be because Eazy-E's wife, Tamika Woods, thought Pac's music just wasn't good. And also, Tupac had his ongoing assault case, to which he was charged with in late '93. Tupac had negative press surrounding the assault case, which he allegedly sexually assaulted a female named Ayanna Jackson in his hotel room in New York. Jerry Heller told Eazy that signing Pac would be a bad move. He was going to cause problems, and he is possibly facing 4.5 years in prison. Jerry thought it wouldn't make sense to sign a guy who was possibly going to jail. It would just be a waste of money. Plus, Eazy wasn't really interested in signing Pac's group Thug Life because in '93 he signed Bone Thugs and Harmony, so why sign Thug Life? On top of that, Tupac also felt as if Bone Thugs and Harmony were copying him by having the word thug in their name.
I know people looking on TV, they go, wait a minute, didn't I already hear a group called Thug something? I already heard about some kind of thug something on TV. Who is Thug Life? This the original. We are the original thugs. I want to be real again. That's why he's tripping that they can't handle the funk. Talk all that and run to the trunk. You ain't no gangster. You ain't no gangster if you woof it up and then the fight comes to you and then you run for some ammunition.
According to Tamika Woods, Tupac pulled up to Eazy-E's house to get signed to Ruthless, but Eazy-E allegedly told him no, then shut the door in his face. Late '93 and '94 were pretty bad times for Tupac, being accused of sexual assault and struggling to find a label that would give him a chance. On the flip side, 1994 would be the year that Biggie would blow up, beginning the rollout for his debut studio album, Ready to Die. On August 9th, 1994, Biggie dropped the first single from the album, a track called Juicy. This song was an instant success, peaking at number 27 on the US Billboard Hot 100, and after this, the world was now ready for the notorious B.I.G. to drop his debut album. On September 13th, 1994, the notorious B.I.G. dropped his debut studio album, Ready to Die. The album would peak at number 15 on the Billboard 200 charts, shipping 57,000 units in the first week. This project was definitely a slow burner because it wouldn't explode immediately upon release, but it would be certified gold 2 months after its release. This classic album comes at a time where the New York hip-hop scene was the most competitive it's ever been, with everyone wanting the crown as the King of New York. That same month, on September 26, 1994, Thug Life dropped their one and only studio album, Thug Life Volume 1. But in November of 1994, tragedy was looming for Tupac. A year prior, in November of 1993, Tupac would meet a man named Haitian Jack at Scores in New York, where they watched the second Riddick Bowe versus Evander Holyfield boxing fight. They watched the fight in the VIP room, where Haitian Jack gave Pac a bottle of Remy Martin and Cuban cigars. Pac said, quote, "Wow, man, this is the life," being fascinated with the rich lifestyle that Haitian Jack was presenting to him, because at the time, Pac wasn't necessarily rich yet. He hadn't really blown up as an artist, but was certainly on the cusp of stardom, and everyone around him knew it. Hailing from East Flatbush, Brooklyn, Haitian Jack was a big-time drug dealer in the 80s and 90s during the crack epidemic, making a ton of money in the streets. Haitian Jack was highly respected in the streets of New York, but eventually, Jack would want his hand in the music business to clean up the dirty money he was getting and to expand it beyond the streets. After their first meeting at Scores in late 93, Haitian Jack would tell Pac to contact him when he's in the area, and from there, the two would become close friends. During that time, Tupac was in New York mostly for the filming for the movie Above the Rim, and the character he was playing named Birdie was a gangster from New York, very similar to Haitian Jack. One day, Tupac said to me, "I'm glad I met you when I did, because it really helped with the character I was working on." Then I said, "You got something from me?" He was like, "Yeah, man, just your swagger, the way you handle yourself, how everybody's always around you. That was important for me to see that happens, that people gravitate to a gangster." Tupac was infatuated with the gangsters in New York after he started hanging around them a lot more. Haitian Jack would also introduce Pac to another gangster in New York who was having his hand in the music business, James Rosemond, aka Jimmy Henchman. Haitian Jack and his guys took Pac shopping. Quote, "I used to dress in baggies and sneakers. They took me shopping. That's when I bought my Rolex and all my jewels. They made me mature. They introduced me to all these gangsters in Brooklyn." Biggie, of course, knew of Haitian Jack and Jimmy Henchman, so when he heard that Tupac was now getting involved with them, he actually had a conversation with Pac about it. He told Pac to stay away from these guys and that they will only bring him trouble, but Tupac, being a hothead, would not take Biggie's advice. Biggie was really trying to look after Pac. He didn't want to see anything happen to him, but Tupac's ignorance to Biggie, who told him to stay away from Haitian Jack and Jimmy Henchman, would come back to bite him. Tupac was hanging out with a 19-year-old woman named Ayanna Jackson when the two met at a Manhattan club called Nell's, where the two hooked up. A few nights later, Haitian Jack told Pac that Ayanna Jackson was coming back over to hang out in Pac's room on the 38th floor of the Parker Meridian Hotel. Biggie was actually present, waiting to accompany Tupac to a show in New Jersey, but after Ayanna Jackson arrived, Biggie didn't like the vibe, so he left. Allegedly, Biggie left a couple of his guns in the hotel room. When Tupac, his road manager Charles Fuller, and another man arrived, they all hung out. Tupac and Ayanna Jackson then reportedly were in the hotel bedroom alone when two other men entered and proceeded to assault her. Tupac said that when the two men entered the room, he felt weirded out by the group setting, so he left, allegedly having no involvement of what took place that night. Pac then talked to his publicist in another room, feeling groggy, so he went to sleep. Then awoke to Jackson yelling at him for allowing them to assault her. Tupac would spend 1994 proclaiming his innocence while his relationship with Haitian Jack had deteriorated at this point. Pac also started looking at Biggie a little differently. The fact that Biggie was there before he arrived and all this occurred, it seemed like a setup in the eyes of Pac. Also, Tupac got charged with weapons possession that night, not only for his own guns, but also the guns that Biggie had left in the hotel room. Tupac had to rethink who he was surrounding himself with, but Biggie was not trying to set him up. It was just a misunderstanding, but Pac didn't see it that way. Tupac was a hothead who spoke from the heart. If he felt something was off, he was going to say it, whether or not it was true. Whatever Pac feels, he expresses, exactly the reason why his music is so poetic. Pac didn't jump the gun on Biggie yet, because Biggie had nothing to do with this assault case. I mean, if anything, if Pac listened to Biggie and stayed away from Haitian Jack in the first place, this all would have been prevented. Pac thought perhaps Biggie was trying to eliminate the competition because hip hop was so competitive back then. Everyone wanted to be number one. Part of the reason why we got some of the best hip hop music ever in the 90s. This assault case ate away at Pac. The thought of being remembered as a guy who assaults women haunted him. On top of fighting his own demons, his life would ultimately be ruined until he proves his innocence, because walking around with that label made it difficult for him to make a living. His music career was slowing down, and if you thought no label wanted nothing to do with him before the assault case, it was even worse after. No one wanted to promote or push his music after this case would go public. He wasn't allowed to even go to certain cities to perform. Pac felt as if the odds were completely stacked against him after being falsely accused of assault. That's why his next album, he decided to name it Me Against the World, because it was truly Tupac versus the world. His trial was set to begin in November of 1994, over a full year since the incident took place. And on November 29, 1994, outside of the court, he would deliver one of his most iconic interviews ever when he spoke about the case live on TV. During the interview, he would ask where his co-defendants are, questioning why he's the one getting all the flack for this when he didn't even do anything. This was a clear reference to Haitian Jack, who was supposed to be Pac's co-defendant fighting this case with him, but instead, he had a separate trial. This gave Pac the idea that Haitian Jack was allegedly ratting him out and betraying him for not being by his side. Through the press, he would refer to Haitian Jack as a hanger-on.
Okay, so she wasn't prepared for what happened. So where are those people that did this? They were all in the same hotel as me. They were all right in the same room as me. Why am I the only one in court right now? Why is the cameras all on me? And in the report and all these charges, I didn't do nothing. I'm charged with being in concert with some guys. Where they at? Why me? Because I'm Tupac. No, I'm not angry at them. I'm angry at the system. I don't want nobody else to go to jail. You know what I'm saying? But I don't want to go to jail for something I didn't do. You know what I'm saying? I just don't want to be the scapegoat. I want to be, only way I've been practicing my whole life to live my life is to be responsible for what I do. I don't know how to be responsible for what every black male did. I don't know. Yes, I am going to say that I'm a thug. That's because I came from the gutter and I'm still here.
Haitian Jack would speak on this years later during a special called Hip Hop Uncovered, saying, Pac was all good when I was doing things for him until we caught that punk's case that easily could have been beaten by both of us. He let his attorneys turn him against me, and that's the part I'll never forgive him for, because I'm gonna ride or die with you. I expect you to do the same. See, that's what I call a fair weather friend. Haitian Jack was offended that Pac called him a hanger-on, so everyone around Jack wanted to make a statement and do something to Pac. Haitian Jack told him nothing is going to happen to him unless he says. Haitian Jack didn't want to hurt or kill Pac. He didn't think what Pac said was worth doing anything to him and told his crew to let it go. But there was one guy out of the crowd who had something to prove, and that man was none other than Jimmy Henchman. Henchman didn't like how Pac was speaking about Haitian Jack publicly, alluding that Jack was a snitch. Jimmy Henchman wanted to teach Tupac a lesson and teach him to respect Haitian Jack and himself. Jimmy had actually planned this attack days in advance, but he thought now would be the time to move forward with a setup play. Haitian Jack never gave anyone the green light. He didn't want anything to happen to Pac. He thought his comments didn't warrant a shooting, but Henchman